Hey, good afternoon, Jag. So good to see you.
Good afternoon, Victor. Nice to
Yeah,
meet you.
yeah. I'm so happy to have a few minutes with you to chat about the moment we're in right now and kind of what's on your mind as a leader, as an equity leader, and systems leader. Um, and so let's jump right into it. And I actually want to start by asking you about you in the sense of how are you taking care of yourself in this moment, both personally and professionally, knowing what we're in, because things that have been revealed and are now being talked about, I think we've been on to that for a while.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so now where are you in that? Yeah.
yeah. So, in terms of personally, I am taking care of myself I'm lucky that I get to quarantine with my mom.
Mhm.
And so I get to hang out with her, spend some time with her, doing projects around the house and things of that nature. Um, this crosses over personally and professionally. I have a group of I connect with a group of African American female leaders across the state,
Mm.
and we are engaged in a book club um, on a new book called Leading While Female
Mm.
by Dolores Ramsey and a couple of other awesome authors. And
Mhm.
so just really coming together and recognizing that as African American female leaders, we have some needs and we need to fill our cup individually and collectively. And so that crosses over both personally and professionally for me.
Well, I have to ask,
Yeah.
can you give us a little insight into what you all be talking about when you get together?
Yeah. We talk about how we are experiencing the system of education. We also have a couple of folks who work in the medical field, and
Mm.
so it's some similar conversations. But just how we're experiencing the system, being a part of a group that has been oppressed, and we're trying to eliminate systemic oppression. And so it's playing that tug of war. Like, okay,
Mhm.
we understand how it feels, and in a lot of ways there are still some microaggressions and things of that nature that are that we experience, and we want to keep moving forward. So as a group we think about collectively, so how do we fill our cup, how
Yeah.
do we kind of not only just manage in this system but thrive and flourish in the system, and be our most authentic selves.
Mm.
And sometimes that's hard. uh,
Yeah.
so those are the things that we talk about.
Does it feel what's different, or have you talked about what what feels different now that this the world has been turned upside down?
Yeah, it's
Um,
mostly access to, at this point, I feel like as a society in California, and more specifically, we're just at the ground level of, can we get all students' devices? Can we get them all connected to the internet? That's like ground zero, right? We haven't even gotten into the pedagogy of online learning and blended learning and all of that. And so thinking about ways that the kids that we serve, who are typically kids of color in urban areas, how our kids are impacted even more, right? There's more
mhm.
stressors that may be happening for their families who are either essential workers, or just, one parent has been laid off or whatever the situation may be. And then how parents are able to engage with their kids around learning at
Mm.
this time that's very difficult. So we think about, like, so what are the consequences of the actions that we're doing currently, or that we're engaged in currently, and then where can we go from here, and who's going to be our allies in the work as we move it forward.
Yeah. So let's stay on this for a minute. Then, tell me then uh, what is your leadership moves that are you making now, given the moment we're in, and what might be different than what you might have been doing previous to the pandemic.
Yeah. So I'm in a position where I'm not as close to students as I have been in the past as a teacher and a principal. So I'm at a county office now. And a lot of it is supporting staff and at the county level, but then also supporting staff at the school and district level, thinking about the mental health of adults right now, because that
Mm.
is where our influence is. How do we
Mm.
support people so that they stay healthy and sane during these times? If they are closer to kids, educating them as a teacher or leading a school site. Quite a few of the women in the group that I talked about are site administrators. So
Okay.
just thinking about how they're supporting with the mental health aspect of their teachers. And so
Mhm.
that is more of the role that I play. And I'm not a mental health practitioner by any means, but I think it's really important for us to think about as education leaders, how we're creating the space for people to feel connected and to really talk and think about like what's happening right now.
Mhm.
How is this impacting my own personal life, but then also the lives of the students that we're serving or our staffs.
Mhm. Would you say that that conversation you're having, were you having that before this moment, or has it been maybe
Yeah,
amplified
I think it's
now?
amplified now,
Yeah.
right? Because when you're with people, in close proximity,
Yeah.
uh, physically, then it oftentimes can feel different because you're with them already. So you're thinking about ways to connect with them. But now that most things are distant, right, or online, we're
Yeah.
trying to be creative and think of ways that you can connect people in that kind of way. And I've heard from folks across the state, different teachers and principals, about the amazing ways that they're thinking about connecting the adults on campus and then
Mhm.
also their students.
Could you give me a couple of examples of that you've heard?
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
have a friend who's a teacher in Southern California, and she was telling me that they have her staff, her colleagues, they have weekly challenges. So they all have, like, for example, a grade level will get together, and all the teachers in the school have the same, or the staff in the school have the same challenge, and then they'll record it online, and then share it with all of the students, in the
Mhm.
school. So those are just some fun things that folks are thinking about doing.
Right.
Uh, to keep connected and to also just enjoy some of the time that they're having now, right?
Right.
Because while there's a lot of challenges in what we're doing, there's also some innovative practices and ways of being and thinking that can also come out of this.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad you said that. Say a little bit more about that, because one of the things that my interest around helping equity leaders think not just about equity, which is absolutely necessary, but kind of the systems that we're in and what do we understand about sort of the complexity of those systems and what that calls on us to do as leaders. So a lot of times words get thrown around like creative and innovative and new practices, but really?
Mm.
Um, we know how bounded the systems are, and there's a bunch of rules and regulations that you're supposed to follow to get the job done. But now there seems to be an open possibility with this world being turned upside down to maybe make some different kinds of moves. And I'm wondering sort of what's going on for you when you think about that.
Yeah. So what I think about in terms of what you just said is, how can we truly be innovative in our thinking and creativity towards different ways that students can learn, different ways that adults can learn, um, and also think about some of the barriers that may be there for both adults and children when we think about that. So thinking about the unintended consequences, or the domino effect, whatever you want to call it. Like, yeah, great, we have these ideas. Like, all the students in California are going to be engaged in distance learning, but all students in California don't have internet access
Right.
or a computer, right?
Mm.
And some districts hadn't had the opportunity or had a different model and didn't have devices for them readily available when the pandemic hit. So I think it's thinking about the bigger picture. Yes, what we want for students, but then also how can we be innovative in our approach in terms of rewriting policy, rewriting schedules, and the way in which we engage students. So I've been looking online at different ways in which districts are like their scheduling around distance learning. And
Mhm.
some have been, I noticed, quite creative, right? So it might not look the same as our regular day. And some look exactly the way it would look if a kid were in school.
Mhm.
And for a lot of our underrepresented students, African American, Latinx, Native American students, that didn't work.
Mhm.
And so if we reproduce the same thing online as we did in the classroom, then we're not really preparing kids for the world that's in front of them.
Yeah.
So just thinking about, so what can we do differently? Someone said recently or asked the question recently, why do kids have to be in school learning every day anyway? Right. And so I said, well, what's another way to do it? And just something simple as internships for high schoolers and making sure all students have access, opportunities, and supports to intern, right? And then maybe some blended learning models, right? But also making sure that kids are safe in between time if they're not in the presence of their teacher.
Yeah.
So those are just some things that come to mind.
Yeah. So thank you for that. Makes me wonder then, as we're in this crisis that has in some ways forced us to be more innovative and creative, at least for some of us.
Yeah.
Um, I'm wondering what you're thinking about, because this is a transitional state that we're in, and that has provided a new moment to maybe notice and reflect on what it is that could be possible and what could be different coming out of it. A lot of more and more I see in the media about people talking about the new normal. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
well, what is that,
Right.
right? And does the new normal will continue to include inequity, or does new normal talk about meaning maybe greater equity?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm putting it simply, but I'm wondering as a leader, like, what are you thinking about in terms of coming out of maybe what are you hoping for? What are you worried about as we come out on the other end of this, which is not like an endpoint. There, I think it's going to be waves. I mean, you think about this could come back, maybe even in ways that we can't predict. So
Right.
yeah, kind of where are you with that?
So in terms of worrying, I worry about the quality of learning that students have access to when they're not in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
But to be quite honest with you, I've had that concern for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even when kids were in the classroom. And so the quality of learning matters. And so that's something that even if we are able to be innovative in our approach or our practices and, transform our system, if we don't put equity at the forefront of our design of whatever it is that we're trying to transform or innovate, then we will we will stay stagnant in terms of having inequitable outcomes for our students. And
Mm-hmm.
so that is something that I think about whenever you're thinking about or innovating or transforming a system. Looking at it through a lens of equity will help to transform it in a way that gives students access, opportunities, and supports all students, Black students, like all students. However, if we don't do that, we will reproduce the inequities that already exist. And there are awesome opportunities to do that, I think, at this time.
Tell me one opportunity that you see that you would want to take up for yourself as a leader
Mhm.
coming out of this.
Oh, that's actually a really good question. I would love to challenge folks in their design of how they're going to move forward educating students, right? Whether it's some people may go totally back to brick and mortar. Some folks may do a blended learning model. There are hybrid models that folks can use as well. So I would like to challenge people and put our most vulnerable students in the forefront. So if we do this, what could be the outcome of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And even the process along the way, how is that supporting or further disenfranchising the students who have the most need? And
Mm-hmm.
so I would just challenge people to kind of broaden their lens when they're thinking about designing their system,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can truly be supportive of all students and families as well.
Oh, that's a beautiful image. Um, well, right there with you. So I think our time has run out. I
Okay.
knew this was going to go fast. I could talk with you for hours, I think, about so many different things. So can I just end by just appreciating your leadership, and you inspire me, and it makes me feel like we can actually create a new normal with leaders like you.
Thank you, Victor.
Yeah.
I appreciate the opportunity, and I would love to continue the conversation with you as well.
All right. Well, we can make that happen.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank you.